So we will go ahead and get started. This meeting is being recorded. My name is Derek Hollingsworth. I'm with the Texas Education Agency. I'm joined today by my colleague, Tebbi Bowman. The purpose of today's hearing is to receive public comment on proposed commissioner's rules for 19 TAC, Chapter 102, Educational Programs, Subchapter MM, Commissioner's Rules Concerning Supplemental Special Education Services Program, Section 102.1601, Supplemental Special Education Services Instructional Materials Program for certain public school students receiving special education services. Again, individuals or groups wishing to make oral comments had to sign in ahead of time. Speakers will be called in the order that they signed in. You must identify yourselves at the beginning of your testimony. Speakers will be limited to 3 minutes. As always, speakers are encouraged to submit written testimony in addition to your public comments. You can submit that public or that written testimony at spederule@tea.texas.gov. There is one thing that I have to read verbatim, and then we'll get started. Please clearly state and spell your full name. If you are representing an organization, please clearly state the name of the organization you are representing. You will have only 3 minutes to speak. The timer will start after you have stated your name and, if applicable, the name of the organization you are representing. A 30-second warning will be given. At the end of the 3 minutes, you will be given a signal to stop. Once the stop signal is given, you may complete your sentence and then you must stop. TEA staff will not be responding to comments today, nor will TEA staff ask or answer any questions. And so that is the end of the opening perfunctory remarks. And so we'll begin with Lisa Flores.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity to give some comments virtually and also meet my caretaking duties. I appreciate it. My first name is Lisa, L-I-S-A. My last name is Flores, F-L-O-R-E-S, and I am representing Easter Seals, Central Texas. Do you need me to spell Easter Seals? It's E-A-S-T-E-R-S-E-A-L-S, one word. Can I go?
Go ahead.
Easter Seals and our comments echo a lot of what Mr. Aleman said in prior testimony on a prior day. We definitely want to give priority to low-income families through either the review of the National School Lunch Program or perhaps enrollment in a Title I school. I think there's definitely a need to model uniform information for ARD meetings and guidance to safeguard against ARD committees recommending SSES as a way to supplant, not supplement. I'd hate a scenario where they're said, you can apply for this because our school can't afford it. So there needs to be really clear, uniform guidance to ARD committees who may not be knowledgeable about this program. I know you could model it after the flyer that was just produced for SB 139. And I would like to request that it be done in all languages predominantly spoken in Texas, so English, Spanish, Vietnamese, Arabic, etc. There needs to be an appeal process for disputes. So, excuse me, if a provider is not meeting or there's some sort of issue, there needs to be an appeal process, a dispute process to be able to know who to contact and what to do. Additionally, it would be helpful for parents to have the ability to research the providers and request a vendor if a service or equipment or supports are not available on the existing list. And additionally, it shouldn't have to be said, but I'm going to say it, no employee from TEA should personally benefit from a vendor applying to be in this program through their contracting. So a robust check of the contracting process for TEA. Private information of students should be protected, should not be sold to third parties, and there should be a clear schedule of destruction or clear communication on how those records will be retained from providers to caretakers or guardians. When students are exited from special education, they should obviously lose eligibility. And last, there should be some sort of description of the vendors by category. There should be, I can't see the time because it blends in with your background.
Sorry, 30 seconds.
Okay, there should be a description of vendors by category, so goods, equipment, supports, etc. It's not intuitive to find what you need just from a list of names. That concludes my comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Next is Linda Litzinger.
Good morning. Thank you. I'm Linda, Linda, Litzinger, Litzinger. I'm with Texas Parent to Parents. Do you need me to spell that out by any chance?
Go ahead, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. We are pleased to get the opportunity to speak today. And I'm going to say that we agree completely with Stephen Alleman from Disability Rights Texas and Lisa Flores from Easter Seals, and I won't repeat any of those bullets. And we'll move on to that this program is a wonderful idea, and we thank legislative staff if they're listening today, and TEA for creating it. Parents are discovering some really wonderful educational items like laptops and software that teaches reading, math, logic, some very useful things for home. And but here are some of the difficulties. Parents need some sort of job aid or rubric for finding what they need. Maybe separate the therapy vendors from the objects that are going to come in the mail. And for the therapy vendors, maybe you could click on Central Texas versus Dallas Fort Worth or whatever, and also know who is also a virtual vendor because it's speech therapy. And then for the items, you ought to be able to check physical disability, vision disability, deaf, for example, in order to get to the right durable medical equipment, and or older child, low reader, something like that, because parents are having trouble finding it. And I even wrote to Justin, and he paired me with Kelly Goodman to find some of these things, but that's not the useful way to do it. It needs to be obvious to the parent who's just using it. And then if an item is truly missing, which we seem to think that's true for children who are deaf, we need a way to order it. We're also receiving mixed messages about how a local therapist can be placed on a vendor list. So that needs to be apparent. And then once this vendor list doubles or triples because therapists are added or deaf items are added or whatever, it's going to be really important to have a job aid or a rubric in order to find where you need to go on it. That is all I had. We're very appreciative of this opportunity today. And again, we completely agree with Disability Rights Texas and Easter Seals and what they've already said. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Appreciate it. Okay. Mrs. Eaton, you were next. Are you still just listening?
Yes, I'm still listening. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, ma'am. Next up is Carrie Griffith.
Good morning. My name is Carrie Griffith, Carrie Griffith, Policy Specialist for the Texas State Teachers Association. We appreciate the opportunity to testify this morning on the proposed rules for the Supplemental Special Education Services Program. TSTA actually opposed the enabling legislation during the regular session, and one of the central reasons for this opposition was because of the ways in which this law establishes a disconnect between the Admission Review and Dismissal Committee, and in particular, education professionals and the selection of the educational services and materials. We believe that the proposed rules can do more to mitigate this negative consequence of the new law. Senate Bill 1716 requires ARD committees to inform parents about the types of supplemental services available under the program and provided by the agency approved providers. But in order to ensure consistent and valuable information is provided to all parents, regardless of local capacity, we would like to see this information be standardized by the agency. Second, and most importantly, we recommend that the ARD committees also be directed to go a step further and make recommendations about which supplemental services and instructional materials would best complement the school-based programming toward meeting the educational needs of the student and the goals of the IEP. I think it's fair to say that consumer behavior and educator behavior are not always reconcilable. One is motivated by marketing tactics of self-interested vendors, and the other is motivated by professional insights and student need. The rule text commendably limits the allowable supplemental education services and materials to those that directly benefit students' educational needs, but TSTA recommends that the rules be qualified to include as determined by the ARD committee. ARD committees in Texas work collaboratively to determine how to best serve students, and it's critical that they not be entirely separate and apart from this program. Again, thank you so much for the opportunity to offer these recommendations. We believe that these are minor changes that would go a long way to help our most vulnerable children. Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Next is Wendy Ward.
Good morning. My name is Wendy Ward, Wendy Ward, and I am with the ARC of Texas, and my comments will largely echo Easter Seals, Central Texas, and Disability Rights Texas. Thank you very much for this opportunity to provide comment on TEA's proposal to establish a new rule for the SSES program. We've identified some concerns and recommendations for the commissioner's consideration. Like Easter Seals and Disability Rights Texas, we asked TEA to prioritize applicants who qualify for the National School Lunch Program. There should be a wait list for applicants who don't qualify for the National School Lunch Program to ensure that students who are most in need receive the grants first. TEA can affect these changes by initiating cycles of awards so that assisting families is not hindered. TEA should also state that students who leave the special education system are no longer eligible for an SSES grant. This change will afford an opportunity for another student with a disability and clarify eligibility criteria. TEA should also establish an appeals process for parents to resolve parent disputes that arise about the purchasing and delivery of services and materials in connection with the SSES marketplace with which the Education Service Center contracts. Parents should have a remedy when disputes arise over public funds. There should also be clarity about vendors protecting private, confidential student data and information which should not be sold or monetized. We also recommend TEA develop a standard resource to disseminate streamlined and uniform information about SSES services and materials to parents to ensure consistency across ISDs. And finally, there should be a monitoring and evaluation mechanism to ensure the efficacy of the SSES program overall. Thank you so much again for this opportunity to provide comments on the SSES program.
Thank you very much. All right. Mr. Miller, are you still just listening? Ms. McPeters, are you still just listening?
Yes.
All right. And Ms. Chevalier, are you still just listening?
Yes, I am. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, that is the list of everyone who has signed up to attend today's public hearing. So thank you very much for your time. And that concludes today's public hearing. Thank you very much. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.